Links for Odysee. Click the links for Odysee. Pitch you to join the Discord, though it's a little bit of a free speech zone, so fair warning. How dope is this bass? Let me compare to this like standard guitar or whatever. And then you see this 1970s, I don't know, rhinestone guitar. It's like, yeah, why not? Just let it all hang out. It's like, come on, you gotta have to flash that up a little bit there, Star Child. So Kiss was a band in the 70s. They got together. A good band, good enough rock band standard, but they weren't coming across on tape. Like, they weren't able to capture the excitement on tape, and they were doing live shows, and like people were all over their live shows. And so finally they just started releasing live albums, and then people were like, oh, there's an energy. It's like you listen to Motley Crue, a tape of Motley Crue, and unless you're from that generation, the 80s and 90s, you're like, this is just really mediocre music, which it was. And then you listen to them in concert, you're like, oh, I get it now. This is like a weird concert vibe. There's a weird energy of like four mediocre musicians coming together. Because there's nobody in Motley Crue who's like a real accomplished musician, but it's like they come together, and it's like the sum of the parts is greater than the parts. And there's a weird thing happened with them. Like even Guns N' Roses and Metallica, you hear them in concert and they're kind of raggedy. And if you hear them, it's like, but there's an energy there. Like even though when someone's like a half octave out of tune or something, it's like there's a certain energy with them there that it's like, yeah, it's better than a studio recording. Even though the studio recording, it's like they're perfectly in tune. But you hear this live thing, you're like, oh, this is why people go to concerts. It's this real tribal vibe. It's like, I went to a Tool concert not too long ago. It's like you hear the drums kick in and this is wearing earplugs. You hear the drums kick in, and it's like you can hear it reverb in your chest cavity as its own resonant chamber. It's this like this stuff. You can feel that this stuff goes back, thousands and thousands of years. Actually, I went to a Scorpions concert not that long. I was like 10 or 15 years ago. I don't know. And it was like Scorpions were big in the 80s, and I think they probably got started in the late 70s actually. And then after the end of the Cold War, it's like that kind of music kind of washed away, and you had grunge kick in. Though grunge was actually started up, like, was it Mudhoney started up in the 80s too, and it's like it was just kind of, I don't know, simple dirty rock that kind of morphed into the sound of Seattle, and like glam rock kind of washed away, but then you had hard rock like GNR, Metallica, Megadeth, all that kind of stuff that still stayed, because there's like all musicians were talented. Like anyone who's in a band that you know about is legitimately talented, but like there was like this bubble gum contingent of like the 80s glam rock where it's like, yes, they were talented, but they're playing this bubblegum like Poison stuff. So that kind of stuff's not going to last. But where you get something like Metallica, it's like they just keep going. And like Kiss too, it's like Kiss just kept going. Metallica, Kiss, there's a couple other bands that just kept doing shows. Yeah, anyway, so I saw this Scorpions concert at, I don't know, somewhere in the East Bay, and it was like, there were thousands of people there. It was like, I don't know, over 5,000 people at the show, and it's like all ages. You had little kids there and parents and stuff. It was a trip. And I saw Guns N' Roses a few years ago at their reunion tour at Candlestick, and it was, I think the thing was full, and it was like, I think it was full of people who were like in their 40s and 50s and 60s, who are mostly sitting down to listen to the music now because their backs hurt. But it's like, it was a trip. And I don't know if like, I wonder if Taylor Swift is going to get that kind of thing in 30 years. I don't know. Anyway, so Kiss, Metallica, some of these bands, it's like they just kept touring. The venues got smaller and smaller, and then eventually people started like coming back into them, and the venues started getting bigger and bigger. It's a weird, probably because you look around at the modern music like, oh, this stuff sucks, so you can get your kids into it. You take your kids to a Kiss concert, and people want to see them before they die, or go see Motley Crue's last show. It's like relive a little bit of the 80s magic of sex and drugs, and like, yeah, the 80s were awesome. If you're in your 40s or 50s, you know how awesome the 80s were. Especially looking around now at a country that's kind of headed for a civil disagreement. Okay, so they're asking them in some interview. They're asking about the Mandalorian, which he seemed to enjoy. And like I said, like the Mando wasn't that good. It was that everything else is dog feathers. It's like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Oh, it's so great. It's like It's legitimately okay. It's okay. It's better than good. It's good. I mean, but you look at everything else, you're like, oh, it's relatively good. Everything else is really, really bad. You look at It's Always Sunny. It's like, this is really just a mid-level show. It's not genius. The writing's not great. The acting's definitely not great. It's just they're going a little bit less PC. That was until the recent stuff. Then they went full. They had one episode that was about like trans stuff, and they were just fully drinking the Kool-Aid. It was, I saw it online. It was painful to watch these people who, legitimately were left wing, but then after like TDS and the 2020 riots, it's like these left wing people who didn't spend a lot of time thinking about the left wing, just like now they've got to get on board all this stuff and virtue signal, like, oh yeah, of course, trans, of course. It's like, you guys were supposed to be an edgy comedy show. It's like, this isn't what you spent 15 years developing these characters who wouldn't give a shit about trans issues. Like, there's no way they would give two shits. But you did a whole episode on like just this insanity that people are going to look back 20 years from now and go, oh, this is cringe. Like, this is what led to the Civil War. It's like this kind of insane virtue signaling, echo chamber, confirmation bias nonsense. So the Mando wasn't that good. Everything else was dog shit. Same with It's Always Sunny. So he says they should have kept the chick, even though she had different political points of view. It's not about politics. It's about whether you're a good actress. Fair enough. They talked about being huge in the 70s. Yeah, they were absolutely the hugest thing in the 70s, if you're into that kind of music. At the time of Star Wars. And like, if you saw the holiday special, which I've actually seen more than once, just because it's just a weird experience. It's on YouTube. But during the holiday special, the best part of the holiday special, which was, you got to see it to realize how bad it is, was they had a cartoon, and the cartoon had this kind of 70s style weird vibe to it. And it's like there was an energy in the 70s of like, if you saw old music videos from like Black Sabbath music videos, how they would use the melting screen effect to show, I don't know, like acid was big and weed and mushrooms and that kind of thing. It was like, you look at how degenerate the 70s was and you realize, oh my God, it was like a paradise compared to now. It was so amazing. It's like you could just take drugs and have sex, and I mean, there's a darker side too, but like the darker side of the 70s wasn't nearly. Oh my God! If you're a kid these days, oh my, you got robbed. You got absolutely robbed. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with this. The 70s were huge. Like, yeah, the Star Wars, Kiss, the cartoon that was in the holiday special, you can see it. It's on YouTube. It had this weird hallucinogenic vibe to it. The Lord of the Rings had a cartoon that came out, I think, in the 70s. Where the famous song where there's a whip, there is a way. I think I still have that. And there's like the Puff the Magic Dragon kind of thing was in the 70s. And I don't know. There's a lot of bands who were like singing about rabbit holes and stuff like that. Like, drugs were really big in the 70s, and it was like the good drugs, the fun drugs, the hallucinogenic drugs, not the like the dark scene would have been stimulants was like the 80s vibe of like corporatism, capitalism, that kind of stuff. Or a very dark scene would be central nervous system depressants. Like, hallucinogens are just kind of on a different level. They're not nearly as bad. Anyway, so Stanley redirects the conversation back to Gina Carano. So you're talking earlier about her Mando. Look, political views, this whole cancel culture is so dangerous. Yeah, you're not stopping this train. Accelerate it. The idea people can't speak their mind, that's what freedom is all about. You got half the people in the country now. Well, you probably got a third of the people in the country who legitimately do not want freedom in any form whatsoever. And you got a third of people who are apathetic, and then you got a third of the people who are like, let's just start our own states. Like, go back to a states' rights doctrine. I don't know, get rid of the 14th Amendment, because it probably wasn't constitutional to ratify that under duress anyway. And take, like, Idaho, Oregon, to Washington, a bunch of states for, like, a constitutional collection of people who are not into this open borders, degeneracy, cancel culture, and like, we'll just do our own thing without, like, you guys in California and can do like whatever you guys want to do. You're just trans kids dancing on stage. It's like, okay, we're on the side of the people who are, we want to burn books, but we want to burn the stuff they teach kids about trans kids, 4-year-old trans kids, and I've got 2 daddies. Yeah, we want to go ahead and burn those kind of books. Anyway, so look, political views, whole cancel culture. So James, the idea people can't speak their mind, that's what freedom's all about. To lose your job because of something you said, even if I find it offensive, we got to look at that. Yeah, that, plus you could kick my ass. You know. So yeah, she is my fat Italian wife who hashtag sit on my face. So she was fired by Walt Disney Company over some really petty bullshit. She didn't use pronouns. That was the one thing that got them triggered. And then they wanted her to say "a cab, all cops are bastards," which is, it's like, it's not the 1800s. If you want to piss off cops, you have to call them the F slur, bundles of sticks. But it's like, even your insults are politically correct. They're bastards. It's just 300 years ago that might have been an insult. You say you don't know you don't know the face of your father. That might have been an insult. The only insults nowadays, you're gonna have to call them bundles of sticks. That's like, you gotta find your balls and like be a little politically incorrect. Anyway, so they fired her for that. They fired her when she did this. She said she didn't like the way America was coming. It's like, there's a meme about you know, grow the tall grass so the snakes can hide. Get people to fight, and it's like, people are going to focus. People are so distracted by fighting amongst themselves, they don't realize you're being controlled by these fat cat bankers and NGOs. It's like, you're fighting each other. Even like the low-level Proud Boys and Antifa, it's like, you guys are probably more aligned on more issues, but you're busy fighting each other. And like, there's billionaire bankers who are living in $20 million mansions, and you guys are going home to your apartments. Isn't that the bigger issue? Couldn't you team up, even if you hate each other, and like address the bigger picture? It's like, no, you guys are just puppets dancing on the strings. It's like, if you guys were serious, you'd team up and you'd be protesting outside of Nancy Pelosi's house and Maxine Waters' house and Schumer and all these, assuming that's legal in their jurisdictions. I'm not advocating anything illegal. But no, you guys just like go to Seattle and Portland, fight each other. It's like, what do you accomplish? That's absolute fuck all. Just absolute fuck all. Anyway, so Gina Carano she was fired for that, and Kiss finds their balls again. Oh, Bob Chapek. Yeah, everyone at Disney, if you're supporting Disney, Netflix, those Amazon movies, any HBO Max, all this kind of stuff, why? They're horrible people who hate you. There's no reason to give them money whatsoever. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys on the next episode.